Morning, friends. Today I'm wondering, why is housing the primary store of value? I feel like it doesn't make sense. So, I think most people are aware that the housing market has gone absolutely insane in the last 20, 25 years. And for example, this is an example from Iceland, my parents are from. They bought their house, I can't remember if it was 5 or 7 million ISK in 2002. It was like an average house, and we did renovate when we moved in, but not like a crazy renovation, just replacing the kitchen and stuff. And when they moved out, this was last year, it's almost 25 years later, uh, I'd say it was in about as good condition as when they bought it. And they sold it, I think it was over 90 million ISK. So that should give you an example of the crazy increase in price over 25 or less than 25, I think it was 23 years, something like that. And I don't think Iceland is unique here. I think this happened pretty much everywhere. I personally entered the housing market in 2020. Great year. Bought a flat in London and ended up selling it a few years later. I think it was £15,000 I lost on it, which was lucky. And then I bought a house in the UK, which I still have. And if I sold it today, I would be lucky if I broke even, despite having put quite a bit into the house. This is why I'm not keen on real estate anymore. I think prices are so high. I think here in Hong Kong, prices have come down a third since the peak, and now they're slowly creeping up again. So there's been a bit of a reset. I think in the UK they've more or less stayed stable. I know in Canada they're coming down a bit. So it seems like most markets have either leveled off or are coming down a little bit. Either way, real estate doesn't seem like a great investment nowadays. Best case scenario, you're locking up a lot of capital. Worst case scenario, you're losing. You are a back holder, and your mortgage will be an uncomfortably large liability. So I rent out my property in the UK. I don't like being a landlord, but it is what it is. It's just the circumstances I'm in. I will sell it if I can, but the mortgage makes it difficult. And even renting it out, it's like a really bad, really high effort savings account in the current situation. It's not great. Hopefully, if things go smoothly, it's not just money depreciating, but we'll see. But anyway, that's besides the point. I think what I wanted to talk about is like why did society collectively decide that property should be the way we store wealth? And I think China went like all out with this. Like in China, as far as I know, you can't invest in any, like there's no stocks that the public can easily invest in. So everyone, like the whole economy was just built around, not the whole economy, but the whole household wealth economy was built around basically building a bunch of real estate and investing, and the public investing in that real estate, and to the point where people were building, well, you've seen it in entire cities, just because it's effectively like a store of wealth. And I think China is the worst example, and I think this is like I think China's done a lot of things right, but I think this is honestly one of their biggest mistakes is the whole just using housing as a store of wealth. And I think a lot of Western economies, they haven't gone as far with it, but they're not far behind. And I think UK, Canada, Australia are all good examples of this. I think they're effectively, people call them housing markets with an attached economy or something like that, because the housing market is such a big part of the GDP, is such a big part of the economy that it's just gotten kind of ridiculous. And the issue I have with it is twofold. Like, one is deciding that housing should be a store of wealth is kind of like, in my opinion, it's not any different from saying, well, Bitcoin should be store of wealth or whatever, like some pointless asset, or gold. It's like things are worth something because there's a collective agreement that they are worth something. And the thing is, with a house, it doesn't produce anything. You could argue that commercial real estate is productive, but a house is not a productive asset. It doesn't create anything for the economy. It doesn't create wealth. It doesn't create value. It's not productive. You can argue land is productive. Land is a bit different. And I mean, land has always been historically, the kind of, like, people fight over land. Land is massively valuable. And I guess you could argue that housing is, by proxy, an extension of that. But if you build a house, for example, my parents' house, and it's worth 7 million ISK, and then you sell it, and then, 25 years later, it's worth 90 million ISK. The house didn't do anything to become more valuable. It didn't change anything. It didn't create anything. There's no value being created there. It's just a collective agreement that the value has increased. And obviously my main issue with it is that, house prices are crazy. It's ridiculous. And I think, like, everyone suffers to a degree, but I think younger generations disproportionately suffer more from it. But I think it's a fundamental, like, it's bad economics at the end of the day. Like, it makes more sense to encourage people to invest their savings, or for societies to, okay, so it makes more sense to me for society to store its wealth in productive assets. I think that's my bottom line here. So what are productive assets? I think it could be anything from stocks is the obvious one, commodities. I mean, commodities is a tricky one, but stocks at least, and government bonds are arguably productive, depending on your government, I guess. And like, just productive assets, like, that is a better store of wealth. It's a healthier store of wealth for an economy than a pile of bricks. And I think storing all your wealth in an asset that's essentially not doing anything is also, it's a form of rent seeking, which it does come from housing, rent seeking, that term. But I think rent seeking is a different video. That's another little morning rant. But to me, yes, you can live in a house. You can't live in a Bitcoin, or you can't live in a gold bar, but so the housing has that going for it, I guess. But it's still, I feel like it still doesn't warrant, because it's not a productive asset, it still doesn't warrant this crazy inflation of price, and being effectively a store of wealth for the entirety of society that it has become. I think it fundamentally doesn't make sense. And yeah, also I think talking about why this has happened is probably a separate video as well, but I think I just wanted to make the point that it doesn't make sense to have property be a store of value, and because it's an unproductive asset. That's it. That's all I've got for today. I'm here most mornings. Thanks for listening. Bye.